We have now had 3 days of relative calm after that 13-day stretch where we saw those night-by-night attacks. And it does come even after the president was threatening this major escalation in Iran. There was a discussion at the White House on Friday discussing both the efficacy of those night-by-night strikes, but also about the potential risks for escalation. And what we're told is that both the Vice President, J.D. Vance, and General Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, raised concerns about escalation, and that Kane, in particular, has warned about the potential for dwindling stockpiles of U.S. munitions, including air defense interceptors. Now, the administration strongly denies that is an issue. What Mike Walls, the American ambassador to the United Nations, said yesterday is that, quote, the military has everything it needs to conduct this campaign as effectively as it needs to be. And also claiming, somewhat contradictory there, that anyone leaking information about weapon stockpiles deserves to be in jail. Now, there were a few other concerns that were raised in this meeting, including the potential for a wider regional retaliation. The president also hearing concerns about the potential for civilian deaths inside of Iran if he went after some of those civilian infrastructure sites that he'd been repeatedly warning he would attack, including bridges, power plants, that sort of thing. Now, what the administration is also saying today is that they want space for the diplomacy to proceed. And I am told this morning that that is still continuing. The mediators, including Pakistan and Qatar, still in discussions to try and get the two sides back to the negotiating table. You also have Iran and Oman discussing ways to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. What you've seen President Trump doing over the weekend is continuing this relatively belligerent approach on social media. He posted almost a dozen AI-generated images of the U.S. seizing oil tankers, of the U.S. striking Karg Island, including oil sites on that very critical export site. Now, the president still continuing to have these diplomatic discussions. He's also expected to discuss the whole situation with the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. He's visiting the U.S. for Lindsey Graham's funeral tomorrow. Israel has made pretty clear that it thinks the U.S. has unfinished business inside of Iran.
On economic consequences for every historic and significant decision a president makes. And I am confident that in the end, President Trump will be judged as one of our greatest presidents for numerous reasons, but especially this courageous undertaking. And it may take time, context, and perspective to understand how extraordinary the president's actions are and how heroic they are under the circumstances, since it seems that every element of our society, except for you, Mr. and Mrs. America, are objecting to him doing what he's doing, which must be done.
We have to take a step back here in that a lot of stockpiles were depleted, not only from what we gave Ukraine over the last however many years, 4 or 5 years, and the administration inherited, the Secretary Hegseth inherited a depleted situation from not only Ukraine, but also the ongoing fight with the Houthis under the Biden administration and a depleted military under the Biden administration. So they have decided, one, they're going to new types of munitions, cheaper munitions, new technologies, but also with these new defense budgets, rebuilding our great military. However,
but you acknowledge
I want to be clear.
Do you acknowledge they're depleted, though, at this moment?
I want to be crystal clear. The U.S. military, and I've verified this every which way, has everything that it needs to conduct this campaign as effectively as it needs to be. And I have to tell you, the people that are leaking this nonsense deserve to be in jail.
A French journalist said that she asked President Trump whether he was considering resuming full-scale war. And I want to share how he replied, quote, if we don't get 100% of what we want, absolutely. Getting 100%, I'm going to be generous with this, seems like a really, really, really far reach right now. Are they not setting themselves up to fail by saying things like that?
Well, it's one form of a negotiating strategy, I guess. But the pattern that we've seen here over the last weeks and months now with President Trump and his negotiators is this kind of back and forth of saying that they are going to go all out in terms of war and military pressure. And, that can dial up for a few days. In recent weeks, of course, we've seen, in fact, a resumption of active hostilities and then dialing back and, sort of using this rhetoric of military pressure to try to achieve some breakthroughs at the negotiating table. So far, that hasn't been working. It kind of seems as though neither the U.S. nor the Iranian side wants a resumption of the fullest scale hostilities that we saw at the beginning of this war in March. But at the same time, neither side is in a place yet where it's ready to make the concessions that would be necessary actually to reach some sort of negotiated deal. So we have this kind of in-between place of back and forth and neither peace nor war.
About some of the election deniers that are on the ballot in some of the purple states. I think Arizona comes to mind, right, where Andy Biggs won the Republican nomination for governor. Now, Biggs is a certified election denier, right? And when I think about 2000 and 2020, right, Donald Trump talked about that effort as the big lie. And it was a big lie, but it was also a big conspiracy that had multiple people in multiple states. My question for you is this time any different? Like, it feels like we've seen this show before. Carrie Lake, another election denier, got her nomination for, what was that, Senate governor, and she lost. Is this time different?
Is also in Arizona.
Right.
A couple things. I mean, one, I think that we should zoom out. In the scope of history, we should always worry when these types of people are major nominees for public office. You go all the way back to before the American Revolution. Some of the big pamphleteers in this country, I'm talking about in the 1750s and 1760s, were writing about one of the problems they saw in London at the time.
Yeah.
People were denying elections. People were contesting election after election. It was the canary in the coal mine for the parliamentary system in Britain. One of the reasons so many of those men and women said, I'm decamping, I'm going to the United States. They can't even seem to run an election over here.
Yeah.
Fast forward a couple hundred years here in the United States, we see a similar environment, and where these people are not being shunned, they're being elevated for public office. I mean, to put it another way, the January 6th insurrectionists were trying to get in the House. Now they're inside the House. Now they're core nominees for public office. Andy Biggs, big advocate for what we were seeing on that day for the prevention of the peaceful transfer of power, now a major party nominee. Here's the other side of the coin, though. He's got to go into a general election.
Right.
He may have won a primary. He may have shown I'm the most radical of the radicals. But he's got to go win over people in Arizona who have one hell of an independent streak. If you go to Arizona, people don't like to identify as D or R in the general election. They've got a big capital I. These are independent-minded mavericks in Arizona. And Andy Biggs is going to face a tough hill to climb to win them over.
This is the primal scream of a dying regime. Pray for our enemies, because we're going medieval on these people. You're not got a free shot on all these networks lying about the people. The people have had a belly full of it. I know you don't like hearing that. I know you try to do everything in the world to stop that, but you're not going to stop it. It's going to happen.
And where do people like that go to share the big lie? MAGA media. I wish in my soul, I wish that any of these people had a conscience.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
It's Monday, 27 July, year of our Lord 2026. The great Sam Faddis passed away on Saturday evening. If anybody's virtually almost irreplaceable here in the War Room, Sam would be one of the key elements. Such a great job of representing patriots in the MAGA movement from the early days of the steal in 2020. Sam Faddis became a regular on the show. In fact, we'll play his last hit, which was right before 4th of July. He was going to be on the 4th of July show, but was a little under the weather. And then things kind of picked up momentum from there. We are going to have first our Poso will be with me in the next segment. We'll talk about Sam. Before we get to much of the news that Sam was the best at breaking down for us. Voter fraud, and also the worldwide geopolitical situation. Particularly, Sam had so many years of experience in Iran, in the Middle East, particularly with the Persians. He was unique, I think, among people coming on TV or radio to analyze it. But God's will was he would leave us, and he would leave us on Saturday night, but he will live with us forever. We are going to do a 2-hour special tomorrow night from 5 to 7 about the legacy of Sam Faddis, and we're going to tie it to the news. I don't think we could have better timing than the day that Zelensky and Netanyahu are coming for Lindsey Graham's funeral, but also to have meetings at the White House. And we're going to tie some of the historic hits with Sam Faddis to how current it is, and I think it's kind of breathtaking of how prescient Sam Faddis was, not simply a good man and a patriot that dedicated his life to his country, but somebody that had really the ability to look downrange, just an extraordinary individual. So Sam Faddis, tomorrow night, 5 to 7, a War Room, a special, and we'll have Natalie and Poso be co-hosting. We'll have many other personalities on to discuss Sam and his work and his life and his legacy. Garland Favorito. Garland, we're going to talk politics in a little while. There's an enthusiasm gap, of 10 points. The left wing sees the end of Trump and the end of Trumpism. I was on John Frederick's show earlier, but I keep saying we could close that enthusiasm gap. One of the ways we could do it is really get focused on voter fraud, which is a top issue, because the voter fraud and the stealing of elections is inextricably linked with illegal aliens in the country and foreign nationals being on voter rolls, no matter how much the Democrats tell us or not. There are 278,000 just in 4 states. I think one of the biggest bombs was not simply the Chinese Communist Party was trying to take voter rolls and manipulate them. Everybody knows you can buy them commercially. They were hacking them so they can manipulate them. But also 278,000 non-citizen aliens on voter rolls just in 4 states. That means there are millions and millions and millions. That piece alone is a bombshell. You and Georgia are at the tip of the spear. I would say Arizona and Georgia are the 2 worst, with Pennsylvania and right behind. You've put out a press release this morning. What are you calling for? What is Voter GA calling for in this press release, Garland Favorito?
Well, Steve, after the president made his speech and declassified these documents, we decided to open a project to actually look at them all. And I personally have read every declassified document that has been released. And as you said, they are stunning. There's 5 different areas that he outlined. As you mentioned, the Chinese Communist government acquiring 220 million voter roll records. We had as you said, the 278,000 non-citizens on the voter rolls, 250,000 in only 4 states, as you mentioned. And then you had the fake Michigan voter registration drive up in Michigan. That was GBI Strategies. That was another major thing. And the Venezuelan connections, as well as how they had developed a means to basically manipulate election results electronically. But probably even one of the most stunning things was the U.S. Intelligence Committee, both multiple divisions of U.S. intelligence, FBI, NSA, CIA, that were covering up all this information of the Chinese influence into American elections. And particularly, they had 2 things going. They had the interference, and they had several projects there, and they had this massive influencing campaign. And all of this was covered up And, you know, you and I and many people have been talking about the deep state all along. And, you know, there are examples in these documents of the deep state in action. And this is just one example we thought was incredibly important to share. And that is when the FBI counterintelligence director said that she was running a shadow government across the FBI.
Hang on one second, Garland. Where are you getting to that? Her name, her identity, and why she is not already rolled up next to the war room.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, Poso's just back with us, but we have a technical issue. We're going to try to get him up, and maybe by phone, but just bear with us momentarily. Garland, I want to make sure we put this in perspective, because a way to get the enthusiasm level, which, let's be blunt, the political geniuses doing this have not said how they're going to do it. I got a hint for them. Take your number 2 pencil out and write down, let's get back to President Trump's, let's get back to the policies that won the biggest comfort behind victory in American history in 2024. Just the basics, like mass deportations and, you know, we're going to have budget cuts and finally get hands around the budget, no foreign wars, you know, a maniacal focus on the United States, a new nationalism focused on this. But at the railhead of it, we are going to clean out the rat's nest of the deep state. And the first way we're going to do it is to stop allowing, whether it's Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, or Zoran Mamdani, from being able to steal elections. If you stop them from coming in and supporting the deep state and allowing the deep state to do that, that is a huge effort. We're way down the road, and people will get jacked up with that, because the stealing of the elections, okay, and the concomitant invasion of our country are inextricably linked. The Warren Posse knows that. They're enthusiastic. We can stop this, but got to be action, action, action. So, Garland, I just want to make sure I've got this. And I realize you did a 1-hour special the other night. You're going to do one later this week. We're going to work with you so we can get our own crafted 1 hour with you on the 6 o'clock hour. And we're going to figure out when we can do it. But I just want to hit reset, because people have known you for years, and you've hung into this fight for years. They've tried to throw you into bankruptcy or everything. You guys are very detail oriented. The reason that the ballots are at the FBI, and the reason that even their top lawyers, right, could not win to get the ballots back so they can destroy them. One of the reasons, there's many groups down in Georgia that are fighting for patriots, is your group, which is one of the more important, your attention to detail. Now, you have gone back, as Garland, Favorito, and Voter GA will do. You and your team have gone through everything that Bill Pulte, and Bill Pulte is an American patriot and a hero, and the John Solomon Task Force pulled together, had the intelligence agencies sign off, redacted where they had to redact, and I sometimes think it's over-redacted, but hey, that's just an opinion of mine. They said because to get the intelligence agencies to sign off, they had to do that, fine. You've gone through all the documents, and now you guys are putting out, you're doing a 1-hour presentation of which we will get you up to make sure it's handcrafted for the Warren Posse. Now, that being said, of all the Chinese Communist Party interference, the Chinese Communist Party influence, all the thing that shocks you the most, and quite frankly that shocked me the most, is the unified team effort by the intelligence community of the United States of America, and not one or two bad apples, but a systemic focus on making sure that this information, number one, wasn't really stopped, and number two, that the information about it was suppressed, right? You're as shocked as I am. But you've singled out one particular individual, you said, that jumps through the page here of her arrogance of bragging about what they're doing, which is running, wait for it, a shadow government. Garland, Favorito, the floor is yours.
Well, exactly right, Steve. So this is just one example, which is very clear. Another one which we want to report on in our next press release is the NSA withholding this information from the President of the United States in the fall of 2020. Another huge example to describe what you're saying. But, and as you said, there's multiple intelligence agencies involved. There were a couple of true career patriots who were trying to get this information to the president. They were mostly in DNI. That's, I think if the other thing that just floors me is that when you see this massive intelligence cover up, and you combine it with the Chinese influence operation that was beyond my wildest imagination as to what was going on. And we'll have to talk about that in our 1 hour show. But the Chinese Communist government was operating, they were running a massive election influence campaign, in addition to the examples of election interference, such as this intelligence report, which was trying to explain the 20,000 fake driver's license that came in from China, that type of thing. You had, and we talked about the voter roll manipulation or the unauthorized access.
This is why people in Georgia showed up. And they said, hey, I need to vote. And they go, no, you've already voted. This is why they didn't buy this commercially. What they did is they hacked it with a unit from the People's Liberation Army that just focuses on cyber hacking. They're the tops in the world. That's what they did. In addition, the apparatus and the Democrats have had no answer for what the 250,000, 270,000 foreign nationals on the voter rolls. This is systemic. This is not just one or two incompetent election clerks, right? And that's 4 states. And you see Jackie Sherrill lying, Mikey Sherrill bald-faced lying about the situation in Jersey. Talk to me about Flores. Talk to me about the press release today, and why are you singling out the woman at the FBI who bragged about she was running a shadow government, sir?
Well, it's such a simple example of what we have been saying all along. I mean, the deep state is real, and this proves it. We have another one with the NSA withholding the information from the President of the United States in a presidential daily brief. That's another example. But this one is really particularly egregious. And here's what's interesting, Steve. When she says that she's running the shadow government, the response she got from another director in another FBI office was, you do what you have to do with a smiley face, hang in there. So it's not just her, as you said, it's a systemic problem. This one happens to just be within the FBI, but again, as you said, it is widespread through, in particular, the NSA and as well as the other intelligence agencies.
What are you recommending that the president do about this? Because you want to close the enthusiasm gap, have a throwdown with John Thune about the blocking of the Save America Act and not allowing the president to have recess appointments. Of course, the president for the first time, and I don't know who briefed him on this, but the president for the first time put out a meme on True Social this weekend about exactly that topic, about how many recess appointments Reagan had, the first Bush, the second Bush, President Trump in 5.5 years, 0. What are you recommending? What is Voter GA recommending about, after you guys have read it and curated it and thought about it, what are you recommending the president do, sir?
Well, we obviously, Steve, have a national security crisis. And to your point, Congress isn't going to solve this. They have been, even though the House has done their job, the Senate has not, unfortunately. So the president is going to have to, I think, seriously consider a national security declaration of some kind, because we can't have the communist Chinese government infiltrating our intelligence agencies and our elections and expect to have a legitimate election. And the other thing, Steve, that we haven't mentioned, but just I'll throw in there, is that there are several documents that show that they had hired journalists to produce articles that denigrated the president. So that is just, we can't have this type of situation. It seems like to me the Chinese Communist government has done to America what the CIA did to other countries in terms of influencing their elections.
Your recommendation, because the other side of this, folks, I'm going to connect some dots. This whole thing on AI that's exploded over the last 48 hours. Scott Bessent, the Secretary of Treasury, saying that these open AI models from the Chinese are all off of stolen intellectual property from the Americans. You have this huge issue now that the export controls around the advanced chips, of which the War Room's our recommendation is that no chips whatsoever go to the Chinese Communist Party, none, zero, the null set. And in fact, everybody should be prosecuted, including NVIDIA, that are working on a black market. We're finding out now that the Chinese Communist Party are getting the most advanced chips. How are they getting? Oh, they're getting them through a third party in Thailand. Just like shipping these chips to the Middle East. The black market for these advanced chips, and the Chinese Communist Party is doing it. Why is nobody pursuing it aggressively except for a handful of patriots? Because of their infiltration everywhere and the money they're spreading everywhere. And you can see that in these documents. Their number one objective after they tore up the trade deal in May of 2019 was to remove Donald Trump. Well, they had to do it with a biological weapon coming from Wuhan, or had to steal the 2020 election. By hook or crook, they were getting Trump out of there. They had to, because Trump is the first president in our country's history really to stand up to him. I want to hold you through one more break real quickly. Is your recommendation to the president, should he hold this summit with Xi at the end of September, sir?
Well, that's a great question, Steve. And I try to stay in my lane because what they are going to discuss, I don't know. But we definitely have an issue that needs to be resolved with China. So if the president if that's his objective, okay, I certainly would support that.
Hang on. I'm going to ask you this question. I want the answer when you get back. Is in the information you've seen in the interference of the Chinese Communist Party and others, is Ossoff, who they're talking about as a presidential candidate in 2028, is he actually a legitimate standing United States senator? I notice that Ossoff doesn't want to touch that. It's like a hand grenade with a pin in it. Garland, Favorito next, Jack Posobiec on deck on a Monday in the War Room.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
The reality here, and this is why we got to get to the bottom of it. I realize everybody, all the Republican rhinos, all the Republican establishment don't want to touch this. Why don't they want to touch it? Because they're complicit in not stopping it and not putting to an end and not fighting for it. They're also complicit in these people that for years and years and years, they allowed in the deep state. The country is not in a crisis with our major cities controlled by Marxist jihadists because the Republican Party was doing its job, okay? They were controlled opposition. And this is the situation we find ourselves in. That's why they don't want to touch the voter fraud and the stealing of elections. Quite frankly, that's why the McConnell construct, because that's all you're dealing with in the Senate, doesn't want to cooperate with President Trump on anything. They treat him like a lame duck. You know why? They want Trump gone. They want Trump gone. And they want Trumpism gone. Ours is a populist nationalist movement. They are neoliberal neocons. They detest, more than they detest, why all of a sudden they're all talking, the communism and Marxism. Why are they talking about this now? Because their playbook, they've delivered nothing. Jack Posobiec published on Humans, 2 years ago? We've got Bradley Thayer coming out of the book he's worked with over a year that's coming out in the middle of August on confronting communism and Marxism and taking it down. Why is it the War Room has been talking about this for years and years and years, and then all of a sudden, Polly Pockets, Johnson, all these guys, all of a sudden, it's Marxism, it's communism, because they got nothing else. They're not populist and they're not nationalist. So, Garland,
since they've tortured you for 6 years for your efforts here, is Ossoff, and man, if you mention this, they don't, MSNBC, oh my God, it's worse than Fauci. You guys are conspiracy theorists. It's nuts, because Ossoff right now is probably their dark horse candidate for the presidential nomination of 28. Is Ossoff a legitimate or illegitimate senator, sir? Did he actually win that election, or was that also stolen?
Steve, I think I can answer that question with the Secretary of State's own report. If you go to our voterga.org studies tab and you look on page 18, you'll see the election results from the morning after the election. And they show that at that point in time, 158 of 159 counties had reported, only 13 precincts left to report in Fulton County. And John Ossoff's opponent, David Perdue, the sitting senator of David Perdue, had a 78,000 vote margin over the runoff margin. So he had 78,000 excess votes over what he needed, what Ossoff would have needed to even cause a runoff. That's with 13 precincts left. There were only, that's only a few thousand votes left to count. There's no way that Ossoff could have made up that difference, but somehow he magically did, according to Fulton County, and that caused a runoff in which Ossoff won in January of 2021. So the bottom line is, that the Secretary of State's own reports show that Ossoff did not legitimately make the runoff in the November 2020 election.
And the rat's nest that is Fulton County, sir, we're still fighting today. This is why they just went to court to get the ballots back. The Democratic Party understands, not just the presidential, they need the line of defense that they will never give up is Fulton County, because inside the rat's nest that is Fulton County explains the entire thing. Does it not, Garland, Favorito?
Well, absolutely, Stephen. This is why they have hid those ballots for 5 years and violated Georgia open records request law multiple times. They are still refusing to give up ballots and even the ballot images, which we've already got through our court case and discovery. But that is why they have hidden these ballots so long.
To change the conversation, this is why they indicted so many patriots in Georgia, but also Donald Trump. They wanted to send Donald Trump away to jail for 50 or 60 years from Fulton County, the most corrupt county in this country, and that's saying something. When you think about Detroit and other counties in this country, the railhead of corruption, and remember, the Republican establishment and Brian Kemp have done nothing about this. They did nothing but fight Garland, Favorito, and other patriots, Cleta Mitchell and many others, about getting to the bottom of 2020, and particularly the Senate races. They did nothing but fight it. They did nothing but thwart it. And then when Trump was indicted, they just sat back and let it go. This is the rot that is in the Republican Party, and this is why there's no enthusiasm for the Republican Party. Where there's enthusiasm for is MAGA. The populist nationalist movement in this country can dominate. The first thing we have to do is overthrow the rotting husk of a Republican Party that's too gutless to confront Chinese Communist Party interference from other nations, and they've turned this country over to foreigners. Garland, Favorito, where can people go where can they get all the information about Ossoff and the illegitimate? He's an illegitimate senator, full stop. Where do they get the information on that? And sir, where do they get the information of this analysis, this 1 hour presentation that you're doing on having gone through the entire dump of Pulte, the director of DNI, the acting director of DNI, and John Solomon from Real America's Voice, is now leading a task force inside the White House. Where do they go?
So the document I just mentioned is on the voterga.org studies tab. It's our VoterGA security recommendations that we made for the House Election Study Committee. And it's in there. It gives a complete history. If you click on the studies tab, it'll give you the complete history of all the problems that Georgia has had. So that is one way to go. By the way, this was produced we're all volunteers. We don't take salaries. We have done this for years as volunteers, both Tamara and myself, and a whole slew of other folks that Caroline and Jason Frazier and all these folks. So we're all volunteers. And then the other thing, Steve, in regards to the declassification document, I'm happy to do I think we should do a special thing just for the War Room Posse on that.
Perfect.
I'm available the next couple of days before we go out of town.
Okay, we'll take you up on that, Garland. Appreciate you. One more time, where do people go to get all the information about what you're putting up about this?
It's voterga.org, and we are all volunteer, nonpartisan organization. Any donations are tax deductible. Thank you for all the posse has been so great for us and help us keep going. So we thank you, Steve, and the War Room Posse as well.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. By the way, Pulte's also announced another round of layoffs. I just want to make sure we're not playing into the hands of the CIA, but Pulte's cutting out the deep staters that are anti-Trump from all these intelligence apparatuses. I got Jack on the phone. Jack, first off, I got so much more to go into with you, the war, Sam Faddis, all of it. But I just want to ask you right there about Flores, about these documents that came out, about her bragging about she was running a shadow government and she had people give her a thumbs up or the smiley face and, keep working, other members of the plot to destroy the president. I'm asking Cash, bro, what's going on, man? That's a government gangster right there. Let's roll, okay? She should be one of the first ones perp walked. Your thoughts, sir? Coming from the intelligence community, your thoughts?
Well, Steve, thanks again for having me on, and we'll get the technical difficulties sorted out by human events time, of course. And Steve, look, Catherine Herridge, I think, put out a very, very serious interview as well last night, where she was talking about this former senior CIA operations officer who's blowing the whistle now on the same thing, the shadow government. This is what we're told, is that there's a shadow government that believes that their success, they measure success, and I saw this when I was in the intelligence community, and this is one of the many reasons I had to walk away, was that they believe their success was blocking the president's initiatives. They believe their job was to, quote, defend the United States, remember, defend our democracy from President Trump. And what do they mean by our democracy? They always mean the interagency. They always mean the regime. They always mean the blob of Washington, D.C. That's what it's all been about. And of course, this is, and I've said for years, that it's not elite capture by China. It's an elite merger with China. Steve, case in point, by the way, when they talk about, they say, oh, Russia is targeting, Iranian bases. Excuse me. We know that it's the Chinese Communist Party with their satellites, the Beidou system, that was posting images of our aircraft carriers steaming all the way to the Gulf in the early days of the Iran conflict. We know that it was the Chinese Communist Party that's providing this targeting information to the Iranians from the very start. So whether or not the Russians are as well, that might be on a classified system, but we know publicly that China has been doing so. And yet you don't hear the same chorus from the D.C. interagency that you do about China. And so we see the same thing down in Georgia when we hear that it was China that, of course, targeted our elections. And by the way, I'm the kind of guy who I've always said straight up, like, I can kind of understand Raphael Warnock being elected in Georgia. I don't like it, but I can kind of understand it. But John Ossoff, that was just obviously stolen. It was just obviously stolen. And now this guy, they want to run him to be, of course, they want him to be president if he can win this election, again, going up against Mike Collins. So that's what it's all about there. It's all about getting these Barack Obama-style types all over the country. They got Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania. I see this guy as sort of a Josh Shapiro archetype. They had Buttigieg. They were able to get him up through South Bend, Indiana. Then he moved over to Michigan. He was looking at a Senate seat, ultimately didn't run, wants to run for president. And you can see the archetype of this style of a technocratic Democrat that comes out from the system, similar to Obama, that they want running all over the country. And so you have to put all of this together, Steve, that when they talk about defending our democracy, that's what they literally mean. You just have to change the word democracy with our system, the regime.
When you have something that's in boldface print, like you have Flores talking about the shadow government she's running and bragging about it to her other conspirators, and then you have Catherine Herridge's great breaking news about the former CIA whistleblower, what is it going to take for law enforcement to step up here? This has got to be a priority. We've got a minute on this side, Jack. Obviously, you're going to stick with us, but what are your thoughts? Why are these people not being rolled up right now? This is a clear and present danger to the nation.
Well, Steve, this is right off the bat. If you can find any time where they were countermanding the president of the United States, number one, they should obviously be fired. Number two, they should obviously be sent out. And number three, if they were willfully hiding information or conducting anything in violation of the orders of the president of the United States, if they were doing so, again, at the behest or for the benefit of a foreign nation, then that is a crime. And that's absolutely something that should be looked at under the Espionage Act. That's a clear violation of federal law.
Jack, hang on. We're going to hold you to the break and come back in a moment. A lot more to talk about. Big meeting with Ukraine and Israel in Washington, D.C. at the same time. Is that war starting to merge together because of Zelensky's action with our weapon systems? Stick around. I want to thank Birch Gold, our sponsor. I think maybe now more than ever, the end of the dollar empire, the 9th free edition, 9th free installments coming out, but already got 8 free installments to keep you occupied, understand everything about capital markets, fiat currency, the history of the country, and particularly its populist economics. Birchgold.com, promo code War Room, yes. Promo code Bannon. Hey, promo code Bannon. Go check it out today. Talk to Philip Patrick and the team today.
It's a mess, and I agree with your previous guest using the term rug merchant. I mean, look, that's where you are. You're in the Middle East. Everybody's constantly changing their deal. They're lying. They're shifting. They're bobbing. They're weaving. That's going to be the nature of the beast. I mean, the way you get through that is you hold course and you understand this is our bottom line, and this is what we will do, and this is what we won't do, and I really don't care about you guys dancing around with all this nonsense. Don't give them a dime, and don't believe anything they say until you see it proven in the light of day. Promises mean absolutely nothing.
It was also said that we were going to try to do stabilization between Syria and Hezbollah and Lebanon and Israel. Isn't that just sucking us back into this quagmire? I mean, Israel, if they want to do the Greater Israel Project or any project, that's they're a sovereign nation, just like Britain got their sovereignty back with Brexit 10 years ago. Tomorrow, like we're fighting for our sovereignty here, they got to be cut loose to do what they do. Now, it's that we can't be part of that. We can't step in every 2 minutes. Now it looks like we're trying to arbitrate that. And these two groups are going to go at each other, and Syria is going to get into it because you know what? It's just the way it is. Nothing on earth is going to, no piece of paper, no board or commission. It's just one group hates the other and they're going after it. The other group's going to pound back all the time. Syria's going to get involved. They're not a good actor, particularly the guy, as President Trump says, he's doing a good job in Syria, but he's no choir boy, right? The whole group of there's no choir boys. That's why you can't, the more you engage, the more you get deals and we're going to do this and bring stability. No, we're not going to bring stability because the region is never going to be stable given its nature. Am I wrong in that, sir?
Amen, Steve. Look, stop trying to fix all of this. If they ever want to work it out, they can work it out, but we're not going to fix it. And look, I'm just going to say this. Jolani, head of, the guy who runs Syria now, the guy's al-Qaeda. Okay, I get it, he wears a suit now, and he claims he's not part of al-Qaeda anymore. Inviting the al-Qaeda Sunni extremists from Syria to go fight the Shia extremist crazy people in Lebanon is not going to fix the problem. Those guys have been at war for 1,500 years over the question of who gets to succeed the prophet. And they're going to keep fighting forever. And it's not going to make it better to turn them on each other. They already do that enough on their own.
Is it in your mind, is the president...
Okay, hang over a second. Hang over a second. Thank you. Irreplaceable. Unbelievable. Such a great man. First started coming on the show about, because of his leadership in the grassroots movement in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania about the stolen election. And obviously we had him on for years and years and years on his take. He wrote an amazing book about the CIA I read. I think the book came out in like 2008, 2009. Just an incredible book and such a wise man. We're going to do a special tomorrow from 5 to 7 that we're going to tie what Sam Faddis said and what he meant, right, to our movement and to the nation, and kind of his guidance to us over the last couple of years, directly to the breaking news of the day. Because tomorrow, Jack Posobiec, I want to get you in here. Tomorrow, Zelensky and Netanyahu are both here, and Sam was the best at walking through both of the conflicts. Poso, knowing how close you are and what you think about the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we lost a giant Saturday night, sir.
No, Steve, that's exactly right. And, you know, there never was a Pennsylvania patriot like Sam Faddis who could quite do it all the way that he did. Not only was a patriot, served his country, but in the CIA, served his country the right way in terms of the intelligence service, but also went back and did what he could at the grassroots level in Pennsylvania, and certainly someone that I looked up to constantly as a role model in many of the things that I attempt to do in my career. And, you know, when you look at the way that because he had such a wealth of experience that for folks who are out there reading the headlines, trying to read between it, Sam wasn't reading the headlines, okay? Sam was there when all of that was written. And that's what people need to understand, is that he understood the players like none other. And that's why he understood, and he predicted, actually, that we would see it coming, that Washington does not like to view things in vacuums. Washington likes to view things combined. And he understood D.C. indelibly. And so he predicted that it would be Washington that would try to push, again, the same deep state would be trying to work with allies abroad to try to merge the Ukraine war and the Iran conflict into one global situation. And of course, this is something that we had warned about, for the War Room had warned about, Human Events had warned about for years, because now you've got yourself in a two-front conflict. That's where we were talking for years and years about the level of our interceptors, the level of our Patriot missiles, the level of our ability to provide for the air defense, again, in all of these conflicts, if we were going to be spread thin, not to mention, of course, Taiwan, which is always potentially on the bubble. This is exactly what we warned against, and Sam Faddis was the guy who realized what was going to happen.
It was also Jack, you're going to stick with me. You're going to be in the first block. We're also going to go to Oxford, where Eric Metaxas is, and then we're going to have a breakdown of one of these countries trying to put $1 billion in back of influencers, which is pretty shocking. We'll break all that down in a new report that's coming out. Jack, it was also his effort. The number of times we would talk, and he was at some Patriots event in Commonwealth, and whether we could hook in by video or give a talk, I mean, this guy didn't have a free weekend. He dedicated his life, not just in his active duty with the military and then the CIA, but then he dedicated these years after that to basically being one of the leaders in the MAGA movement. And I mean down in the trenches where this thing has to be won, and that is in the stealing of elections. Posobiec, give me 30 seconds before we go to break.
Oh, Steve, that's exactly right. And that's what it's going to take. You have to fight on the home front. You have to understand what's going on the waterfront as well. And there is none better at it than Sam Faddis.
Jack Posobiec, stick around. Jack's going to get the technical issues worked out with Real America's Voice. So his 2:00 show, following Charlie Kirk, you'll get to see his lovely visage. He's going to stick around with us on phone. We've got a lot more to go through. Also, we're going to Oxford about the American Revolution, because Eric Metaxas is there to talk about it. By the way, I gave the wrong promo code. Remember, it's /Bannon. End of the Dollar Empire, birchgold.com /Bannon, End of the Dollar Empire. And you get to talk to Philip Patrick and the team. Do that and do it today. Short break.